Welcome to the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. We are very happy to host you here. My name is Urša Mlekuš, for those who don't know me. Probably you've met me during our online trainings, but now, it's first time that we see each other in person. So I will give you a short intro to the training. Okay, first about logistics and objectives of our training. So, we are very excited to have you here because we've managed to gather all 11 pilot projects. We have more than 75 participants here today, and the training itself will actually work in two tracks. So first we have the joint session, and then we will split in business and governance and in technical sessions. So there will be two big meeting rooms, but all joint sessions will happen here. Okay, what are the objectives today? Of course, to learn how to develop viable business models for data spaces, to understand governance structures for local and federated data spaces, to prepare for sustainability beyond EU funding, and of course to gain also practical technical skills like interoperability, ODRL, credentials, federation, and so on. I'm sure you already heard a lot about these expressions. Okay, so let's have a short look at the high-level agenda. So today the training will go on from 9 to almost 5 in the afternoon. And after the training session, there will be recording of interviews for each pilot. This will happen in another meeting room, which is located behind this meeting room. Okay, on the second day, so tomorrow we meet again at 9. We finish a bit earlier, and the second day is going to be more about federation and sustainability, whereas today we're going to focus more on local smart communities. Okay, how we'll work together? So we intend that these sessions are highly interactive, they're very hands-on, that we share experience, ask questions, and so on. Expect to contribute, share, and co-create. And of course, our trainers are here to support you. Okay, so this is more detailed agenda for day one. So we start with the joint session, which is happening at the moment, and then, as I've mentioned before, we split into groups. The business and governance group stays in this room, and the technical group is going to go to meeting room B. Okay, there of course coffee break, again splitting into groups, lunch break. During lunch break we will take a group family photo of all of us. And then again 2 separate session, joint session, and we finish again together at 4:15. Okay, as I have already mentioned a few times now, this is where most of the event is going to happen. Coffee breaks and lunch are in this hall between both meeting rooms. And there is going to happen also, of course, photographing and video recording. We have a data privacy statement at the registration table, so if you wouldn't like to be photographed, just say so. We will going to give you a pin, a red pin, so it's viable that you don't want to take photos. Okay, and don't forget about the social event which is going to happen in this evening. We are going to have a dinner at the restaurant Sputnik, so you can reach the restaurant by bus. There are actually 2 lines, 6 and 6A, or you can either take a taxi. Yesterday I've sent you email with also taxi number, but if you inquire anything else, just reach out and we will find a solution. Okay, now I will pass the floor to the Gernot, who is one of our trainers. Thank you.
Good morning, also from my side. Blueprint evolution. Actually, where's the keys here? It is a journey we have done already since October 2023. I was not here at the time. I just onboarded in April this year. And we started with some assets that were created by the preparatory action, the project before. And we had some resources that are available on the internet. They were also the basis for the open call tenders. Is the audio enough, or shall I go down? Good. And this was the starting point. So this was assets available. This was the starting point for the open calls. And then we did some work until June 2025, where we issued our first iteration of the DS4 SSCC blueprint. And there was quite some things happening in between. So we had, of course, the first experiences from working with the pilots. We had the developments from the DSSC blueprint we are basing on. So there were multiple versions. They are updating continuously. Today they are at the version 2.0, and next March it will end the first DSSC project with the version 3.0. Then a new kit on the block, the simple implementation. So this was already on the radar, but the technique was not there. The first public demonstration of the simple stack was done in January this year. So we had it in our objectives, but there was no technique there. And many other evolutions. So there was tech stacks. I'm from Fireware. We have some components. Eclipse has done some developments, open source projects, other connectors. So there was a lot of things happening. And what we've learned so far until June, we have put into the first evolution of the blueprint, and we have sent it to the Commission for approval. You have received it in the preparation material as an early reader, and we hope to get it approved in next week, right? 29th, 23rd. So then we can hopefully publish it, and if they confirm. So that's a first accomplishment, and it was not so easy because it's mostly a wrap-up of the whole project, and I was with my colleague Anna pretty new, but with the help of our project team, we managed to compile it together. Good. So what is content of the blueprint update in June? So it still bases on the pillars of the DSSC blueprint. It covers business, organizational, legal, and all three technical pillars. You have heard of it before. You will hear of it even more because this is our core foundation that we are basing on. And we have considered the data space ecosystem evolution, so what was developing outside. We have learned from it and compiled it into what we know and also what we do not know, what we try to achieve in the rest of the project. We have identified key challenges and conclusions from the projects, from the pilots, because we are working here with you, we are supporting you, and we want to come to successful project end, so we want to have great achievements. So we have seen what is missing for you. We have identified it. We have also handed it to the Commission because it's not all coverable by us, but also by external players. And so it's important to mention what we've learned, what is missing for you, what are challenges for you. We have addressed recommendations from what we have learned. We have described considerable aspects that we might think can be improved during our project. It will not be all because there are so many open questions in data space ecosystem. We try our best to do as much as we can, but 100% probably it's not possible. There are even already follow-up projects covering the data space aspects in smart cities and communities. So we try our best to come as far as we can. And in month 36, there will be a second iteration of the blueprint with everything we've learned from the pilots throughout the whole project lifetime. And again, they will be built on the technical building blocks and the business and organizational building blocks of the DSSC, which you will hear a lot of the next days. What were our challenges? So first of all, we have a diversity of pilot architectures. So it's easy to federate a common European data space if you have everywhere the same tech stack. We don't have. So we have a recommended tech stack, but we have differences in it. So we have independent developments in the common European data spaces. So deploy EMDS, for example, for the mobility data space, they took a different tech stack than us. So it's not the same. So there's really diversity in the ecosystem. So the legislation and rules across countries, of course, is to struggle with. We have missing standardizations. There's lots of technology development out there, and standardization has just started. There is a new standardization request in July this year, but they start to work now, and they will be ready somewhere in 26. So there is no standardization available, so nobody can refer to standards. We have missing guidance for cross-data space federation. So this is also in DCC a pretty new topic. So if you want to go from mobility to smart communities and cities, it's not well described, and even tools are missing. We have new technology like Simple. We have tackled brownfield developments that you are not starting from scratch, so you have to consider existing technology stacks that are not necessarily ready for data spaces. And yeah, we have also evolving governance and regulatory contexts like data acts from the European Commission, AI stuff, and so it's really moving and many moving parts. So this is what we have to cope with. But this is quite a list, but we are not alone, and so many participants in the data space ecosystem are dealing with the same problems, and we hope to make it happen together. And so they are working with us, with you, on solving these open questions we have identified. And this brings us to the journey to the end of the project. Today we have the first iteration of the blueprint. Then in the end of the project we will have a second iteration. We will also hand it over to the European Commission. It will, of course, consist any new learnings from the pilots. It will be based on the blueprint 3.0 from DSSC. It will have more details about Simple, because now we are starting to talk with them. We have the architecture. We meet them tomorrow. I think this is the first time. This is a good and important aspect, that we can speak to people. And of course, there is happening a lot out there. And so this will become the new content of the evolution of the blueprint. And then our next steps will be getting the first iteration approved. Then we are progressing with our learnings and activities from the in-person workshop we have here. We start to implement data spaces first locally in the pilots, and then as a next step as a federation within the smart cities and communities common data space. We are speaking with Simple, I just mentioned it. We are addressing the recommendations. So what we have recommended to the pilots, what would be a good thing to adopt. We follow up. We are working on solutions for the open questions. And we are, of course, collaborating with the relevant data space ecosystem players. Yeah, we follow the standardization activities, because hopefully soon there will be standards that all can refer to and work the same way as like with USB-C cables. Good thing, hopefully we achieve something like this soon. And here, we are here to support you. So we from the DSS4 SSCC minus DEP, so the deployment project of the smart cities and communities. And we are here to support you. And there's even the next project, I mentioned it, so the LDT, so the local digital twin for smart cities and communities. So we must not solve everything, but we try to come as far as we can. And it's important that we work on it together to make it a success. And with that, I will hand over for the, no, I will not hand over. I will mention the technical building blocks. I have described them in the blueprint. So it's not so much changed. So it's the data interoperability, data sovereignty and trust, and the data value creation enablers that are the same pillars. They have just evolved in content, but there is now a new layer you can see on top. It's the, how can I read it? The foundational standards. So it's referring already on coming up standards for example, credential exchange. So there's new content available. Control and data plane. This is a new concept in the data space connectors. So that there's a separation of concerns. So the preparation, negotiation, cataloging, and then the real data exchange. And also additional services to support data spaces itself, considering that we are still missing some cross-data space federation services. So this is still missing. And here we have started on the assets that we have from the deployment project before. So we have a recommended blueprint that is requiring a list of standards. They are also referred to in the data space additional technical standards. So it's basically the tech stack of the Fiverr Data Space Connector. You will hear more of it today. It's one of the 3 big players today. So we have Eclipse, Fiverr, and Simple coming up. But this is a recommended one. And best case, we have all the same tech stack in the data space. We don't have. So we will have some challenges of federation. We will talk about it. We have developed a new evolved architecture drawing that is also considering aspects of data spaces. We will go into more depth the coming days. And so this is pretty easy in your local data spaces because you're in control of that. Because you choose your tech stack, and in your pilot, you can be harmonized. But the moment we want to have a cross-data space federation, even in smart cities and communities, we will have different tech stacks. So the federation of the local pilots into a federated European data space for smart cities and communities will become a challenge. And we are working on it. We have some first ideas. We have recommendations on the business part, on the organizational stuff, on the tech stuff, but it will not all be solved tomorrow. There's work to do. And with that, I hand over to the business and governance track, who is done by Flavio. Thank you.
Thank you, Gernot. So yeah, I will say a few words first about the whole other part, let's say, of the blueprint, which is the non-technical part, which, of course, for us it's equally important as having the technical infrastructure. So a bit about the evolution of these non-technical topics in the blueprint. So already in the preparatory action, this was 2022-23, we prepared the multi-stakeholder governance scheme that you by now know very well. One of the important outcome of that work was the data cooperation canvas that some of you have filled in already during when you were submitting your project proposals, but with your mentors, I think up to now you have filled them in. You understand why they're important, and the basics, the basic non-technical parts of your data space are defined there. Then we further aligned with the blueprint of the Data Space Support Center, as Gernot already mentioned. That's nothing new for you as well. And then we tried to simplify the governance structures that we defined a few years ago in this preparatory phase. We will hear about that a bit later and also during the day. We have worked on the development of business building blocks, which were not well defined in the beginning, and together with you, with the feedback also that we got from the interviews for your self-assessment and so on, we are trying to help you also to build your business case around it, right? And then there are some recommendations for further evolution, and we have already seen about that. So we have this technical pillar. It's how things connect. It's what is the infrastructure, how everything works together. And then I will now tell you a few words about this business part. So business building blocks. This is why. So why would you join? Why would anyone join a data space? And most importantly, stay in this data space. This is the business part of the blueprint, and then later we will see also about governance and local building blocks. So this whole part focuses on value incentives. This is the business. Then sustainability, it's of course somewhere between the business part and good governance of the data space. And at the end, we have accountability, where we have the rules and everything else. where we learn how to govern our data space, right? So business building blocks, they should help us making the data space viable. They're about the value logic of a data space, so we have to understand who benefits, why, as I said, why anyone would engage, and what keeps you still engaged in the data space. We would like to push you a bit today to think about the sustainability beyond project funding. So some of you end already, I think, in 6-7 months, some of you in a year. But it's really, really important to understand for us, but also for you, what happens once this European funding ends. And this is part of this non-technical part of the blueprint that should help you there. And of course, one part is business. We have companies here, but we have also representatives of local authorities. So the business building blocks should help bridge this gap and connect these priorities of the community to data-driven services that provide some real value. So we are talking about the Data Space Support Center and the framework that they defined there. And now we ask ourselves, okay, we have these 4 business blocks from the Data Space Support Center. You don't have to be too much concerned about the definition of those, what to put in which box. But what we find out that there are some specifics, and this is the blueprint for the data space for smart communities that Gernot introduced, that also in this business part that there are some specifics that we should include, take care, and try to evaluate how to adapt the blueprint for smart communities data spaces. Of course, maybe the most important aspect is that public authorities, local authorities in this data space are important co-creators. They have a strong say into how is this data space going to be set up. Then we have seen also from the work with you, with the pilots, that there is a lot of thinking about this public-private models. So public money, private money. What's the added value? How can this be brought to the data space to grow beyond this EU funding? I think we are still not very conclusive there, but this is the direction that it seems this type of data space is taking. And then trust and fairness are central to this data space. This is, in general, the idea of the European data strategy, where the data space concept comes from. But for local data spaces of smart communities, this is one of the really important issues that should be solved if we want to make the data space sustainable. So the evolution of the building blocks, very shortly. So a few years ago, in this preparation phase, we were not really sure what is the business case behind this type of data space. So these business models were very generic, very vague. We made some assumptions to put this work forward. Now with you, with the pilots, we have for sure clearer use cases. We understand, and you also understand, what are you trying to achieve. I left this still in yellow because this is very early, but some pricing and cost recovery models are slowly popping up. I hope we can support you in understanding this by the end of your project. And also the incentives to participate in such a data space are emerging a bit. What is still missing is this long-term sustainability beyond EU funding, and again, also this small dragon here, which is the symbol of Ljubljana. If you still haven't seen it around the city, one is here, and it's going to leave Ljubljana with one of the pilots. We have David and Olga from the Data Space Support Center that will help you today to bring the dragon at home with you. But it's going to be up to you to that we decide who takes it. And this dragon will help you to go beyond EU sustainability. I mean beyond EU funding, I'm sure. So this is about the dragon and the governance, the business building blocks. Now to governance and legal. I'm asking Cecilia to take take the stage. Thank you.
Hello, also from my side. Good to see you all, and I think I've already met many of you in the previous trainings, but if not, then my name is Silla Sepp. I work in the Finnish Center for Smart Cities, which is one of the partners, and besides the open calls that we led, now been also involved more on the governance side of the blueprint iterations and also supporting you in the trainings. My goal for the next more or less 10 minutes or so is similarly to Gernot and Flavio to introduce some of the iterations that we had for the governance building blocks within the blueprint, but also talk you through some of the open questions that we have related to those points. I want to stress right away that I think in this context of data spaces developments, we're in the moment where there are no, let's say, simple or straightforward answers to give, also to you when you have challenges with some of the points. So we need to actually research it together, we need to experiment, we need to collectively actually make sense of the context, find some, let's say, common patterns, best practices, etc., and then try to also consolidate this to the blueprint. So also when I think you've already had the chance to read a little bit the updated blueprint, you'll probably see that some of the guidance is pretty high level and it needs to be translated still to the context of your own pilots. This is the work that we want to do together with you already during the next 2 days, but of course also in the remaining time of your pilot implementations. In terms of the governance, I want to also stress that it seems to me that sometimes when we talk about governance, we are talking about many different things at the same time. Let's say, from my perspective, sometimes it seems from a technical perspective that they would start to talk about data and data sharing governance from the point of like what kind of standards and specifications should be used, how do we actually organize it in our catalogs, etc. That's also governance. And at the same time, we're talking about how to define different roles, how to divide that among our organization, what kind of structures should we put in place, etc. So everything seems to be related to governance, and it's kind of contextualized within your own decisions. While it's true, I think it's really important also that when we continue talking about governance mechanisms, we are also, let's say, specific about what exactly are we actually talking about. Otherwise, it can get really muddled and kind of we start to talk a little bit past each other. It's also true that governance is not only embedded in the governance building blocks, it's in the decisions that you make, for example, for the technical implementations, etc. So try to think about this also in terms of how things in the end are organized in your data space. So you see that I've already tried to kind of simplify this to the context of the organizational governance and the data and data sharing governance. And you'll see that many of the governance building blocks in the blueprint refer mostly to the upper part of the organizational governance as such. The other kind of reflection that I just want to have as this introduction is that the point here is definitely not to create administrative complexity to the data spaces and bureaucracy. You'll see that many of the language even sometimes in the blueprint start to refer that there should be a lot of different type of committees, working groups, decision-making, let's say, structures as such. This is really not the point. Actually, quite the contrary. Our task for you, as well as for us, is to find the most elegant, easy, most fit for purpose type of context that actually would bring you forward. And if in the current context, the data space initiative's development is still in an early stage, very explorative stage, then it's also fine that maybe certain decisions are made ad hoc based on the consortium partners that you have here. And you don't need to create a separate, let's say, committee just for that. But the challenge, of course, is that when the complexity will rise and more stakeholders come in, into the data space, more use cases will be involved, etc., then how do you also keep governance mechanisms and processes in check so that they still can clarify how decisions are made, how their decisions are influenced, who is at the table, on what, based on what those decisions are made, etc. So this kind of evolution of those processes is very much an open question also, and what we want to learn together with you. All right, talked a lot about the kind of general context. Next, I want to just give you a quick tour for some of the iterations that we had for the governance building blocks, not going into too much detail, as you have all of that in the blueprint. So as a reminder, we have the two building blocks around governance, organizational form and governance authority and participation management. One of the, let's say, the general iterations that we tried to do was to take the multi-stakeholder governance scheme, align it as much as we can with the guidance coming from the Data Spaces Support Center so that we also talk about governance in the same way and try to straighten out this so that it's easier to also navigate between all of the guidance that is available around data spaces. What we try to do is also to simplify as much as we can the proposed structures, the proposed roles, and so forth, and also try to think that how those roles are actually in the end distributed among different type of stakeholders. Smart communities is particular compared to other types of data spaces because it's driven by the needs of the local communities and driven also by the municipalities or the public authorities. But to make it sustainable, it's really key that we also start to consider the community really as a place with all kinds of stakeholders that also need to have a place how to, let's say, sustain and make it viable for them. So, for example, in terms of use case orchestrators, coordinators, you might want to also consider how you want to share this with the private sector entities, or maybe also civil society, etc. So to make it more diverse and rich. But as I mentioned already a little bit, the point here is not about governance to make too many different types of committees. So even the colorful boxes that you see here in the image, this is not a specific body that we ask you to create. It's a role that we ask you to think about. And if there are some just people who are taking the decisions around what type of technical stack you should deploy, then that person or a couple of people are essentially acting out as the technical committee. You don't need to put that name on that. So just to make it clear that the point here is not to create all of those structures. All right, I think I've talked you through most of it. You'll see most of the details around the roles and responsibilities more in the blueprint document already. What you'll also see, as already with the other perspectives, we've tried to take the kind of general guidance and then apply it to the smart communities context, also based on your experiences. Of course, the timeline of the pilot implementations was there weren't a lot of learnings yet because everything is still in implementation. We hope that we can enrich this much more in the next period. But the second main iteration that we had for the governance building blocks was to actually add the participation management. It was largely missing from the multi-stakeholder governance scheme, at least in this kind of formulation and at that level of detail. And here the point is to really try to understand in concrete terms, how do you invite new participants into the data space, how other participants can actually come in and either apply or get in touch with you to take part. And here the point is not only about data recipients and also data providers, but also all kinds of different types of enabling services. For example, if other type of intermediary would want to also participate and enrich your data space with their existing ecosystem. So how should that play out? What kind of decisions need to be made for it? Of course, also it's a matter of understanding how you kind of manage operations throughout the life cycle of those collaborations with those participants, and of course then in different contexts, if the participants would want to leave or you would want them to leave, what's the offboarding process. The evolution here, what we want to work with you is definitely to understand it very much in practice. How does this actually play out? What are the best practices around that? So that's why we also asked you to describe this a little bit more in detail already within your home assignments. We've looked through these and we'll start to also synthesize based on that. Need to start wrapping up a little bit, so moving quickly through also the legal building blocks. Here we had the regulatory compliance and the contractual framework building blocks. And I think it's fair to say that the legal ones are the most high level, because also the legal context legal building blocks are very contextual to your own cases. In terms of the data sets that you want to deploy, the kind of even not only the European legal landscape, but also the national and local ones. So this is something that we cannot provide very straightforward answers, especially in this very dynamic environment at the moment, with Data Act just being now in force and competent authorities trying to also support the different member states to figure out what are the contractual terms actually for this, etc. So we need to see how it plays out in practice. And of course, then also based on your own experiences. So the blueprint itself is not so providing given very concrete answers that, okay, you can do this or you cannot do that. It's rather proposing a methodology how to think about when to start thinking about certain types of requirements, how to then combine these, etc. And within the blueprint, we've provide a overall kind of mapping of some of the relevant legislations that should be relevant for smart communities, keeping out domain-specific regulations. Some of you at least have had already a training on the Green Deal regulations. Hopefully we'll get the chance to also do it once more to the others who couldn't. And we also have a specific training coming up for the legal landscape there. All right, I think that's it for the legal side. Just mentioning again that there's a lot of gray area for the regulations, how these will definitely kind of let's say, work together. We cannot look at any of the regulations in silos. Yeah, as already mentioned, look forward to working together with you to figure out how to understand how this actually play out in practice. What we're seeing in terms of the pilot implementations is that you're trying to, and of course this is understandable, to minimize risk. So for example, the types of data sets that you're onboarding, the minimizing of using, for example, also personal data, that will all simplify a little bit at least the being compliant with regulations, but how this will move forward, that's a question. Finally, I will talk through more about the kind of governance perspectives around federation more tomorrow, but I want to just stress again, overall in terms of the governance, is that this is not, we don't expect you to start iterating on your governance frameworks from scratch. It's understandable that you will embed this into your own context within your local communities, within your states. There's certain types of practices that are given because of how things are done in a specific domain also. So this is something that will give you right away some, let's say, borderlines to the landscape that you're working with. Now the question is that, as Gernot was mentioning about the diversity of tech stacks, we obviously also have then diversity of different governance frameworks. And in terms of already you trying to expand the data space with multiple more other domains, as well as then later on when we start to talk about federation, we need to think about also how do we make those governance frameworks also interoperable. So when you just refer to the European interoperability framework, we have all of those different levels. The organizational interoperability, of course, is key here as well, not only the technical or semantic or so forth. I think I need to also quickly go through the last slide here before wrapping up the session. So what we need to overall learn together in all of those perspectives is how to make sure that your pilots and your data space initiatives actually sustain over time, especially over the course of your pilot projects. And for that, we need to understand what are the business models that you actually want to start developing further. And this is to think through very carefully how do you create value, how do you capture that value, and how to not only think about how do you fund those iterations, but actually how to also create money to sustain it over time. Which are the use cases and offerings that actually show that real value. It's not only this kind of nice to haves, that it's great to do those things, because of course in stressful times, also economically, nice to have activities tend to be deprioritized. So how do you also sell data space iterations for the upcoming election periods, etc. This is some you need to figure out the real value actually for that. What are the specific roles and practices for intermediaries and operators within your data space initiatives, especially if there are multiple of them within the context of one single data space? How do those interact? What are the let's say competition mechanisms there, etc., and how to keep it in balance? What are the common patterns in all of this? We'll talk about the federation, especially tomorrow. And then finally, as mentioned already, how do we actually evolve this over time from explorative initiatives to very mature ones, and how to avoid that we just create a lot of complexity already because we need to manage it, and at the same time keep it fit for purpose. Right, that's it from my side. I look forward to discussing with you throughout the 2 days, and I think I'll give over the word to Ursula for the next steps. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction. Now we will split in two groups. So the ones who are registered for the business and governance track, stay in this room. And for technical track, you go down the hall to the meeting room B. And to everyone who hasn't registered yet, please do so by our registering table. So you also get the name tag and everything. Thank you.